Zimbabwe's former vice president, whose sacking led to the shock resignation of longtime leader Robert Mugabe, could be sworn in as the new president within hours, the ruling party says. Emmerson Mnangagwa, who fled to South Africa 2 weeks ago, is due to arrive back on Wednesday, the ZANU-PF says. His dismissal led both the party and the military to intervene and force an end to Mr. Mugabe's 37-year-long rule. The news sparked wild celebrations across the country late into the night. The announcement that the 93-year-old was stepping down came in the form of a letter read out in Parliament on Wednesday, abruptly halting impeachment proceedings against him. In it, Mr. Mugabe said he was resigning to allow a smooth and peaceful transfer of power, and that his decision was voluntary. A ZANU-PF spokesman said Mr. Mnangagwa, 71, would serve the remainder of Mr. Mugabe's term until elections which are due to take place by September 2018. He is expected to land back in Zimbabwe at 11:30 GMT and later be sworn in, an ally to the former vice president, Larry Mavuma, told Reuters news agency. Together, we will ensure a peaceful transition to the consolidation of our democracy, and bring in a fresh start for all Zimbabweans and foster peace and unity, Mr. Mnangagwa said in comments to Zimbabwe's Newsday on Tuesday. Mr. Mnangagwa's firing by Robert Mugabe 2 weeks ago triggered an unprecedented political crisis in the country. It had been seen by many as an attempt to clear the way for Grace Mugabe to succeed her husband as leader and riled the military leadership, who stepped in and put Mr. Mugabe under house arrest. The move to appoint Mr. Mnangagwa's Robert Mugabe's successor appears to go against the constitution, which would normally give the post to the serving vice president, Felix Mfoko. Mr. Mfoko, a key ally of Grace Mugabe, is not believed to be in the country. Some have questioned whether the handover to Mr. Mnangagwa will bring about real change in the country. Opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai told the BBC he hoped that Zimbabwe was on a new trajectory that would include free and fair elections. He said Mr. Mugabe should be allowed to go and rest for his last days. Prominent opposition politician David Coulthard tweeted, "We have removed a tyrant but not yet a tyranny." African Union President Alpha Conde said he was truly delighted by the news, but expressed regret at the way Mr. Mugabe's rule has ended. "It is a shame that he is leaving through the back door and that he is forsaken by the parliament," he said. At 93, Mr. Mugabe was, until his resignation, the world's oldest leader. He once proclaimed that only God could remove him. Lawmakers from the ruling party and opposition roared with glee when the resignation letter was read aloud in Parliament on Wednesday. Activist and political candidate Vimbesh Musvaburi broke down in tears of joy speaking to the BBC. "We are tired of this man, we are so glad he is gone. We don't want him anymore, and yes, today, it's victory," she said. Fergal Keane, BBC Africa editor, Harare. Driving through Harare, the cheers and the blaring of car horns signaled the end of the Mugabe era. The man who dominated Zimbabwe for so long has already begun to fade into history here. It is a city singing with the noise of joy. Exactly a week after the military first moved against President Mugabe, I was standing in Parliament as legislators debated the motion to impeach him. Suddenly, there was cheering. An usher approached the speaker and handed him a letter. He stood to speak and we strained to hear his words. They were muffled but momentous. Robert Mugabe had resigned. On the floor of the parliament I met jubilant MPs. Some danced. Celebrations spilled into the hallways and out into the street.